Dr. Lauren Lowe is a clinical and sports psychologist with Align Sports and Performance Psychology out of San Francisco, and I really appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks so much for having me, Brody. It's an honor to be here and speak about what's going on over in Oakland. It's quite a show.
You're from the Bay Area. What's the biography? What's the background? What can you tell us about your work and what you do?
Great. Yeah. So I am a Bay Area native. The Bay Area is my home, and I'm very fortunate to be able to have grown up in this area and work and support the community here. So for myself, I was an athlete. And so that passion and experience really drove me to kind of specialize in the field of sports and performance psychology. So as you said, I'm a licensed sports and clinical psychologist. And so I developed Align Sports and Performance Psychology, which is a private practice here in the Bay Area, which focuses on the unique needs of athletes and top performers. So it's great to be here with you and talk about how this situation in Oakland is really impacting us all in the Bay Area.
Yeah, and I appreciate your expertise. So I guess let's just dive in like this. We know that the relocation of a sports franchise, it certainly isn't like life and death or the passing of a loved one. There's no question about that. But I also want to say at the same point, it is significant to a lot of people and what they've been going through. How do you assess, is it potential like absorbed trauma of this process, and what's been going on lately for fans of Oakland baseball?
Absolutely. So, yeah, I think we actually can relate this to a significant loss. Sure, it's not a death, but it is a significant change where something that is so pivotal and so defining to an area and so unifying that when a team proposes moving out of that area, what they represent is community, a home base. And so for fans, there's a lot of uncertainty in this situation. And by having the unknown and the ability to say, we don't know what's next and where is my team going, it can cause a lot of psychological confusion, right? So some fans may be feeling sadness, grief, worry, anxiety, anger, and all of those feelings or emotional reactions are valid. This is a major change for a community that has really rallied around the Oakland Athletics and the franchise.
You brought up the word uncertainty, and obviously that's something that has existed around this team for years and even decades now. Like always been question about, yes, will there be a new home? Where will it be? And this and that. But obviously it's been amplified, and the uncertainty has multiplied, I think, in recent years and stuff. What emotions can long-term uncertainty bring? Because if this were a 3-month or a 6-month process and it came and went, that'd be one thing. But the fact that it's sustained over a long period of time, does that make it any different for those going through it?
It definitely does. I think that actually exacerbates the feelings and complicates the process for individuals. When we have a change and we know the end date, it provides a sort of a container. It says, okay, I know this change is going to happen at X date. So it provides us the stability to process, orient, be able to adjust to the new situation. But when we're left with the unknown, with the Oakland Athletics saying we don't know exactly when or where, hey, we might play in Sacramento or in Oakland. I mean, this is causing so much turmoil. It complicates the grief. It complicates the loss. And so, of course, fans are suffering in the uncertainty. And when it goes unchecked or is left, unbalanced or unprocessed or even talked about with fans, family, friends, it can lead to more serious mental health considerations like anxiety, depression. And so, we want to take this seriously and how it can affect a community. And it can be traumatic, right? It's a home base up and leaving without a lot of clarification and without a lot of care and attunement and appreciation for the fan base and what helped make the Oakland Athletics wonderful.
And, Major League Baseball teams, they don't relocate a lot. I mean, it's happened once in the last 50 plus years. So there's not a lot of precedent to even know how to handle this. And some are going to want to protest or boycott. Some are going to go to opening day and treat this season like it's a farewell send-off, and they want to do everything they can to support the actual players. But I think that brings part of the confusion because there is no playbook for anybody to do this the, quote, right way. Is there also something you could tell us about that?
Sure. Well, I think that whenever we're going through stages of significant change and there can be feelings of uncertainty or hopelessness, there are a few concrete things that we can do that can help kind of shift these feelings or help us process them. So one of them is to say, hey, what is bringing about these feelings? So let's take, for example, hopelessness. Is it the uncertainty of where the A's are going to go? Is it because they're leaving and I'm just completely devastated by that? So by understanding where the source of the emotions is coming from is really helpful. Then the next thing you can do is challenge some of the negative thinking around it, right? We can really polarize in these moments of high emotion. And so when we're thinking really negatively, like, oh, the A's, don't care about me, or, oh, I can't believe this is happening. They're so, money hungry. We want to kind of take those thoughts and maybe adjust them and have a more corrective or more balanced thought. For example, oh, the A's are in a time of uncertainty. They must be feeling this too. Oh, okay, the A's are making a business decision that I might not be okay with, right? And so it kind of changed the landscape of those thoughts. Another thing you can do is follow some self-compassion, right? Tell yourself, hey, it's okay that I'm having these feelings. Hey, it's actually not my fault. Hey, it's okay for me to be angry. The other thing is seek support, right? Talk to friends, talk to family, talk to other fans. I mean, you're not alone in these feelings. Everyone is having a different reaction. And so sharing that can be really, really helpful. The last thing I'm going to say is keep yourself from doom scrolling. If we're having a lot of feelings, limit the exposure to the bad news. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to catch up at a different time. So just kind of be self-aware of what you need. But those are just a few techniques that can kind of help during this time of uncertainty and a lot of emotion.
I feel like you were talking directly to me with that last one. That's one that I can instantly take to heart. Well, and you mentioned the fans all feeling similar ways together. You know that they had a fans fest at the end of February at Jack London Square, and the fans have been getting together almost to prove a point that they do exist, but maybe to, I don't know if grieve is the right word, but to feel the same way at the same time together. And I suppose what you're suggesting is there is some power, there is some healing to that.
It's extremely powerful to be around other folks going through similar situations, right? Like we all have our own unique reactions, but as a community, as Bay Area as a whole, we are all recognizing the impact. No matter where your fan base aligns, this is a loss. And especially for the Oakland community, I mean, time and time again, they have rallied, they have shown up. It's a constant presentation to say we are here and we are proud. And while sometimes, okay, maybe the Coliseum is not jam-packed or full, but the fan base is there and has always been for over 50 years. We're talking generations of Bay Area folks who have poured their heart and soul into this. And so coming together and having these events is really, really powerful for holistic healing and processing.
I think A's fans might feel this way, but not know it entirely all the time. They may not realize this, but they haven't always been heard or represented. And I don't just mean by the team in their decision, what they're trying to do. I also mean by city leaders, the city of Oakland, the county of Alameda, politicians, lawmakers, people with a lot of influence. There hasn't really been a lot of people in this entire process who have stepped up and represent the fans' interest in all of this. The Major League Baseball commissioner, I'll throw him in there in the same conversation. What advice would you give to somebody who may realize that they feel a little helpless here or out of control or, to the point, not being heard, even though their thoughts and feelings and points that they want to make are entirely relevant?
Well, I think that at the core of my belief of everything I do and the best, advice I can give is speak up and speak out. I understand the feeling of not being heard or seen or validated in what individuals are calling out for. The city of Oakland literally took away the population's right to have a say in what is happening in Oakland. And I think that at the crux of it can be, kind of related to a more authoritarian parent, right? Who's just very shaming, blaming, cut off, says, this is my way or the highway. And it can really create a lot of tension and distrust, right? That says, well, you're not listening to me. However, I think the power is actually in coming together and speaking out. Oakland, in its history, is grassroots at its core. And so that's what I think the power of the Oakland A's fans have, is that no matter what, they're still speaking up and they're still fighting and they're still coming together. And that's what I think can help empower individuals when feeling helpless or hopeless, to just say, I'm not going to be quiet. Because being silent is capitulation, right? And so even by speaking up and saying, this is really frustrating, I'm really upset about this, can just help.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about the fan perspective. That's what our entire conversation is about, kind of a check-in on them. But I'm also concerned about people who work at the Coliseum. That's their livelihood, that's their employment, that's how they make a living and feed their family. What about those who have a job that's connected to baseball with the A's at the Coliseum, and it's centered on their existence remaining in Oakland? Doesn't the stress of maybe losing a job or a career or a livelihood for anybody that's part of that demographic, doesn't that rank pretty high as well too?
Absolutely. I mean, job insecurity, financial insecurity, and significant life changes are primary factors that are risk factors to significant mental health, right? So when we look at this from a psychological perspective, I mean, this puts thousands of people in a period of uncertainty, right? Where their whole lives, their location, right? Their children, their families are all relying. We also talk about those individuals who have literally dedicated their lives to the Coliseum and the Oakland A's and everything that happens there. And so not only is it a job, for many folks, that is also a second home. And so not only are we adding the layer of career and financial and job insecurity, right? But there's also that emotional attachment, and how devastating for these folks to not know if they have a job or what that's going to look like. And so, it's tough for everyone.
Well, not even knowing what the next couple years are going to look like. I mean, we have 2024 on the books. That's about to happen. So we're on the doorstep of that. Yes. But after this upcoming season, there's a lot of questions. They might be playing temporary years in Sacramento or elsewhere. And I don't know, I've heard this analogy used that it's like a divorce, but maybe the two partners are still living together in kind of weird circumstances. Is that, I mean, and you see people in cases like this in real life professionally. Is it like that?
I think it absolutely can be a great metaphor or analogy to this situation. I think when we think about sports, when we think about our team, right, it's a family, it's a home, right? The Coliseum has been home to folks. And so this connection and this relationship is absolutely a separation or a divorce. Now, not all separations or divorces are messy. This one is messy. I would say messy, highly litigious, and, a bit isolated, right? People at the very top are making the decisions. And as we just talked about, the fans are not feeling heard, seen, or validated. So sure, it's messy. It's creating a lot of tension. Could you imagine going into the house where there's tension all afoot, and you just know no one's really happy with one another and no one knows if they're going to stay or leave? It's not the vibe. People are going to the Coliseum for the last, potential season here. And so I think that it is definitely a complicating factor, but I think in those instances, right, the power comes from the fans. If we unite, if we are together in this process as fans and move through in whatever way feels true to us and as a group, then we can make a complicated household, right, more tolerable.
Yeah.
And so that's where I say, you're not alone in this. And so rallying together and community, I think, could be one of the greatest protective factors during all of this.
As somebody like myself who has been around sports an entire lifetime, it's my job, it's what I do, I've seen a lot. I'm also a little bit worried about long-term damage of this particular fan base, like baseball fans in Oakland and the East Bay in Northern California, that considering what they've been through and to what we said before, how long it's been going on, that looking forward, no matter what happens, they may find a hard time being a full-in fan of anything else. Like they're almost scarred because of this experience moving forward. Am I reading too much into that? Am I taking that too far, or is that something very real?
Absolutely real. I think that this can be seen as a traumatic event for some folks. This is really a unifying team within Oakland. It represents so much. And I think that when that's ripped away and you have no control, right, that's the definition of trauma. Something that is harmful to you, that happens to you, either you witness or direct exposure, that causes harm or the threat of bodily harm. Okay, sure, this is a different form of trauma. However, it is when there is a lack of control. So when we experience this and we feel completely abandoned, left alone, that a typical response is actually avoidance, saying, this is too painful. This is the root of what has caused me the pain and distrust. And so actually, I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. And it's protective. Right? So I think depending on, the level of attachment, the representation for the fan or the individual, it can have a varying effect, but absolutely a big T or a little t trauma, as I say, can be real, and it could have a ripple effect in the athletics fan base and franchise for sure.
I've got two more questions for you. Both of them kind of
Sure.
deal with advice. And again, this is for the fans and anybody who might be feeling these ways or realizing now that they've been feeling these ways. If the A's do ultimately leave Oakland at the end of this year and go somewhere else temporarily, or ultimately end up in Las Vegas, I feel like there almost might be, in the years and decades to come, maybe even shame among A's fans that they bought in and were invested in something that turned so quickly away from them. But there's also the things that will remain. And I know this because I've been talking to people who are telling me about it, all the shirts and hats and bumper stickers, and some people literally have tattoos of the A's or the Coliseum on their body. What are you supposed to do? What's the best way to handle all of the remains of something that was prior if it doesn't exist anymore?
Well, I think that, it's such an individualized process of how we deal with grief or trauma or loss. And so, I definitely want to just start off by saying it's not a one size fits all. And
Sure.
I definitely recommend trying a few different things because it is a very unique experience. And so I think that just a few tips or tricks to kind of start processing and seeing what you need is, one recommendation is, create a memorabilia box. If it's too painful to witness day in and day out, create a memorabilia box, right? Hold on to those things and from time to time go back and check in so that there's a way that maybe you're protecting yourself from the everyday reminder, but it's something that you still hold and cherish. Some folks might actually want to just do away with all of their memorabilia, or do kind of a purge or a freeing of that. And, sure, that can be helpful and efficient, a letting go ceremony of sorts, right? But that is more extreme, right? That doesn't exactly work when you have a tattoo. The one thing that I recommend, right, is like for anyone or everyone, it's to find out or within yourself, say, what did the Oakland Athletics mean to me? Memorialize it, cherish it in a way that you can hold it. A loss is something that we never actually fully get over, right? Grief is not something that we just get over. It's something that we learn how to deal with. And so, just like any other significant loss, going by the Kubler-Ross theories, stages of grief, right? There can be denial, anger, bargaining, sadness, and acceptance. And so, going through all those different stages and behaviors that go along with that, but just giving yourself the space or the ability to do what you need to do during this time is the best you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So well said. Sports are supposed to be an escape, right? Like people watch sports, they get into sports to take them away from problems. And here we are that sports might be creating kind of people's problems, or at least one of probably many in life. So the last thing I want to end it on here is as fans go through this season and at some points or another, they start to feel these things that maybe they've never felt before, or they've never seeked out help. They've never seeked out talking to somebody or advice. What would you tell those individuals? And I realize this is not maybe your official seeing them, so maybe I don't know how far they can take this advice. But generally speaking, what would you tell fans who are about to go through something like this season, which has all these variables?
Well, I think, my greatest advice is to take it day by day, game by game, and just be curious. I think that emotions come and go, right? It's just like a wave. They can be all encompassing, but they will recede. And so through this season, and just like the last 50 plus years of Oakland athletics baseball, I mean, we know highs and we know lows. And so I think that, there's a way that I say, hop on your surfboard and ride the waves. Yes, this is incredibly devastating and difficult. But I think that if you give yourself the freedom to just say, hey, there's going to be a lot of feelings that come up about this, and all of my reactions may vary, but all of them are totally valid. And I just have to listen and do what feels right in the moment. So sometimes you may want to show up at games and be up in all your garb and cheer like there's no tomorrow. And then other days you may be turning off the TV and taking off your gear and putting it in the keepsake box. So whatever happens, just know that, we all ride these waves. And like I said, you're never alone. And if you're noticing that there is a need for more professional help, there are plenty of resources here in the Bay Area for being able to access care. And so I just recommend to any and everyone that there are many, many resources, both online, through technology and applications, as well as within your schools, employee assistance programs, as well as through a variety of other sources within the Bay Area and California and community at large. So, just know that if you're ever in need of help, you are not alone, and there are plenty of us out here who are here to support and help.
Dr. Lowe, that was fantastic. I really appreciate you kind of doing this mental health check for a lot of Oakland baseball fans who have been going through it for a while now, and certainly it's feels like it's reaching a pinnacle, but who exactly knows? So thank you for the advice. Thank you for the conversation. This was great, and hopefully a lot of people gain from this.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure, and let's go A's.